I'm excited to interview Dr. Pat Boulogne. Let me introduce her before I bring her on. Dr. Pat Boulogne is a high performance mastery master, coach, and functional medicine doctor. She's also a life strategist and an international best-selling author. She is also the CEO and founder of Health Team Network, a company that's dedicated to skyrocketing health, lifestyle, and mindset with superior science based solutions and programs and where results matter. She is most passionate about sharing knowledge and solutions and making sense of challenges that result in even better outcomes that keep you on top of your game at work, home, or play. Everything you need to have better health and mindset mastery. Hi, Dr. Pat. Thank you so much for joining me on the Mental Health Break podcast today.
I'm so happy to be here. It's one of my special topics.
I'm glad to have you here. So, can you tell me a little bit about what you do professionally and what got you interested in that? And then who do you help?
One of the pieces of the puzzle is that in dealing with, when I had my practice and I had a live practice where I had patients on hand in brick and mortar, a lot of people came in, with all sorts of things above and beyond, their pains and their aches. And one of the pieces of that is that, when they came in, what I realized is that unless I dealt with the emotional component, what I call the emotional component, then it was an uphill battle. It's just like instead of it being like a couple month program, it turned into like a 6 month program because people didn't deal with their inner demons per se. And and then, when I did that, people got better faster, easier in changing their diet or things that I asked them to do. That was a really interesting piece of that puzzle. One of my mentors, his name was Victor Frank. He always used to say, what you got isn't necessarily what you got. And that if you don't deal with the emotional component first, then it makes the process even longer. And he was ever so right. And how I got there is that when I first graduated I went to chiropractic school. And I had some really big breakthroughs myself. I used to get headaches all the time and migraine headaches, like stuff that puts you in bed for the whole day. And I decided that I wasn't going to waste my life being sick and being in bed because I had a headache. And so I started taking a look at like how I could facilitate, even better health for myself. And by doing that, I realized there's like some issues that, I had things happen that were in a timely basis, like when it cut me off of money when I was in chiropractic school. And I decided, God, I'm going to do it. I don't need him to do it. And I went ahead and I forged through that. But it was always because something happened that coincided and I had the support that I needed. So when I would work with patients on that mental, physical, emotional, spiritual level, I always made sure that they had access to me afterwards. It wasn't like, okay, now go home and process that. Or we weren't done, but go home and process that. I didn't act, that was not my behavior or my MO in my office. And so that's how I did what I did. And, how I got there, I just kept on meeting the right people at the right time that brought me to a higher or a different level in order for me to go from point A to point C. And then now what I primarily do is I coach and I do consulting, which I consider a coach and a consultant all in one package. And that is helpful because, been there, done that. And then I also know shortcuts and pathways to get from point A to point C that are easier, more effective, and safer.
So, what you were doing as a chiropractor, you began to notice that emotional blockages and emotional pain was causing the physical pain. And so you needed to address the emotions in order for them to feel better physically.
They go hand in hand. It goes it's like on a chemistry equation. You always see an arrow with a half piece or an arrow the other way because the equation's got to be in equilibrium for the equation to work. It's the same thing for our lives. So where you look for the imbalance or like what's not right, what doesn't feel right. I'm wearing a size 6 glove, but I actually have a size 8 on. I'm swimming. Or I'm wearing a 3 glove and I can't move my hands because it's so tight. It's like feels like a bandage. But so yes, in that regard, because your thoughts can create your visceral issues, and your visceral issues can create your thoughts. It's kind of that hamster wheel.
Why is it, though, that medical doctors don't? make that connection. Instead, they just keep prescribing pain medications. And I have had patients where they're like, I don't want to stop taking my pain medication, but I also don't want to deal with my emotions. And
Mhm.
so a lot of people are trained to just take a pain pill instead of actually work on the deeper stuff that's creating these pains in the first place.
I think it's on the Western medicine side, it's called brainwashing.
Mm,
Um, and that if you take this, you're going to feel better. And a lot of times, it just masks the problem. It doesn't get to the problem, what the source of the problem is. A lot of times in dealing when there's a technique that I do called NAT, and I can do it virtually and I can do it, of course, in person. But what I found is that when I've been coaching, there's things that come up for my clients. There was a woman who was not happy with her husband because she was living in one state and he was living in the other, and when he had opportunities to come see her, he'd cancel them. So what she did is she went into that mode and wrote him a 5-page letter, and then she goes, do you think I should send it to him? And I said, tell me what the first 3 sentences are. And I said, no, I think you should get it down to a page and a half, make it into bullets, and talk to him in the language that he understands. And then she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "When he's upset, how old does he act?" And before I could take a breath, she said 10. I said, "Then write it to a
mm,
10-year-old
wow.
because a 10-year-old is what he's going to understand. So if you write it to him," and I go, "You've got to change the first 3 sentences. You have to tell him something that you like about him." No matter how mad you are at him, there's got to be something there, else you wouldn't be wasting all this time in putting your feelings into a letter if you didn't care. And I said, so figure out what those things are, and then tell him that first, and then tell him something that he probably doesn't want to hear in a softer way, and then come back and say something nice, and then tell him every
That
your
would be the
goal.
sandwich method. You
Yeah.
say, yeah, you say something nice, you tell the bulk of the
Mhm.
problem, and then you end it with something nice. That is a great communication tool, and that's a
Yeah.
great idea for you to tell her that.
Well, it worked. He ended up getting on a plane a week later,
Yeah.
and coming out there. He didn't move. But I was really glad to see her, take that because it gave her so much power on her side and empowered her. She called me up in the middle of the week. She said, I haven't felt this good about myself in 17 years, and I went, awesome, and I said, let's keep that going.
Well, this just talks to how much our mind and our subconscious mind controls our behavior, but also our physical movement.
Hmm.
And so when we have blocked emotions, when we have suppressed emotions, it makes our body tense, right? It makes us hold on tighter than we realize. And we don't really realize that we're holding on like that. And so our pain does become worse. But what we've learned is to put a band-aid approach on it, right? Just take a pill, numb ourselves, drink, smoke marijuana, take pain pills, and not to actually sit with those feelings and talk about them and process them.
Hmm.
Is that what you do with the people that you
I
work with?
I do, and that too is just, I teach people what health is, and that you don't know if you're 100% healthy. And that's like, that's a myth, because you don't know how if your organs are functioning 100% of the time. That's impossible. And a lot of people don't pay attention to their health unless they have, some type of consecutive, signs and symptoms. So when, we keep on, like if we don't manage our thoughts and can't master them and command them, then whatever you do to fix those other problems, whether it's toxicity or whether it's trauma and inflammation, you know, whatever you're thinking on does that by about 7 times. And
Mhm.
so it's just like, why am I not getting any better? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I had a client who was overweight. When he looked at the things that he did, and I asked him about the things that he did, he didn't do hardly, he did about a tenth of what I asked him to do or what we talked about he was going to do, and he didn't implement them. And then he was just like, and then that's part about scapegoating. Then it became my fault because he didn't lose the extra 10 pounds that he wanted to lose, and I said, how can I do that I can't do that for you. I can't even do it for myself unless I like take the appropriate action to support that. And if somebody's telling me not to eat sugar and they mean it and we have an agreement, then you shouldn't be eating sugar. You should be eating other things that support your being healthy. And if you have a booklet per se, and a guide to do that with, then why are you sabotaging yourself? Sometimes we all sabotage ourselves because It's like whatever that reward is that we get from being sabotaged, is the higher reward than we get from having what we want to have, what we think that we want to have. And so that's a hard piece for people to get their heads wrapped around that.
We
Go
do
ahead.
sabotage ourselves on a regular basis, but like I said, it's all subconscious related, and we might not even realize we're doing that to ourselves.
hmm
And now you're also an acupuncturist.
I'm trained as an acupuncturist. Yes, I'm a licensed acupuncturist, acupuncture physician, and also I have a master's in Oriental medicine.
I mean, I love acupuncture for so many reasons, and pain would be one of them. But are there ways to help block some of these or unblock some of these emotional blockages with acupuncture so that you can start processing some of the feelings?
I went to go interview with this guy when I first got my license. He was an acupuncturist. He was on the NCCOM board. And so I always started with people and I started pulsing and doing muscle testing. And then the part about the muscle testing and the pulsing is I always wanted to find out what emotion was on the surface. Every one of his patients that I worked with that day started crying because I would ask them about being, it's just like, tell me like something. I go, I'm picking up that something blah 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 is going on. So I go, what are you processing? What just happened? Yeah, I go, because I said I'm going to say that you're sad about something, or you're in a mode of grief, And she's my mother just found out she has Alzheimer's, and
Mm.
just and all that emotion came up.
You got this from muscle testing, not necessarily acupuncture, though.
Well, I'd use the meridians. So I use specific points on the meridians to do that with the muscle testing, and then I
Mhm.
confirmed it with a conversation, and
So
it was
that
very
would
effective.
be acupressure on the meridian points versus the needles.
Well, you could just, what I tapped into is I did needles, but I didn't do needles for that particular thing. I did needles after I figured out what I wanted to do. But I figured that when you're doing needles on somebody, if you don't take care of the emotional component, then that's just sitting underneath and it's like waiting to surface, and as soon as something else, gets, pulled away, then the next thing comes up and the next thing comes up, and so what and I also look at, like, what needs to be handled that day, and
Mhm.
then what they came there for originally. Like, if it was, they have low back pain, they have, problems with digestion, infertility, things like that. Then they got needled for that afterwards. But I wanted to take I always have even when in chiropractic, there's a technique that I used to do that. I always took care of the emotional stuff first, and then I would adjust after that. And so I just kind of carried that methodology with me from, what I learned like years ago into acupuncture also. But you just find where a point is on the body that relates to it. The stronger points on the body are usually closer to the hand or closer to the feet. So if I'm going to muscle test somebody, it's easier for me to use, an entry point or an exit point, and those usually are they're on the feet, on the extremities, or they come up and they end up on the face, or from the face they come down, they go to the hands. And those are the major meridians, and you can pick something from that, and from those pieces of the puzzle.
I love your approach because not a lot of chiropractors do that. Last year, I had the worst pain in my shoulder, and I was in so much pain I couldn't even move. And so I went to one of those. They're like franchises,
The joint,
little.
the joints,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was the most horrible experience. I feel like I'm traumatized for life because I went in there. They didn't even like look at me or talk to me. They just snap, snap, snapped. And I was literally crying and I left feeling worse than when I went in.
Yeah, all they do there is just. They don't their analysis. I just talked to somebody about one of their franchises in Virginia someplace, and because I said, when you don't, if you want to have quality adjusters, and if you have to pay them. You can't pay them. They can make more money going and working at McDonald's. And I said they didn't spend all that money to go and get their career. So a lot of those people don't have that's one of their first entry points for like learning how to adjust people. I always
And
say if
that
you
is so
find
dangerous,
somebody from
though.
life. So
Huh?
it is dangerous because the person doesn't you don't have a connection with them.
Right.
It's just like you gotta understand how the functionality of something. So, like, when somebody has I have a very specific shoulder adjustment style. You would love it, and, it hurts when I do the muscle work and I grab specific points to break up the adhesions in those muscles. Because you don't break those up, your arm's not gonna move.
Yeah.
But I forewarn people. I said, "This is gonna hurt," and they're going, "Oh my god, you didn't lie." It's what I usually get with that. "Oh my god, you didn't lie." Then you ice it and you feel so much better and you have the freedom of movement that you definitely didn't have before you saw me.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that. I went to a myofascia
Uh-huh.
specialist, and he was so gentle with me, and then he could see that I was literally traumatized from these adjustments.
Mhm.
I wouldn't
How
even
many
let
did you
anything.
have?
I went in for 2 or 3 because I was in a lot of pain thinking, and I didn't go to the first person thinking, "Oh my god, he hurt me so bad, I'm never going back to him again." So I went to somebody else. She was just as bad. I think I did 2. And then I said, "I
Mhm.
can't do this anymore," because I mean, they
You
can
need
paralyze you. It's so
you
damn.
could you needed to go to somebody who had, like, classical years of experience,
Yes.
you know, and, you should have called me.
If I knew, well, the reason I ended up there to begin with is it was a Sunday, and I woke up with so much pain. I was literally crying because of the pain. And then so I ended up going to this myofascial fascia guy,
Pasha.
and he
Mhm,
was amazing. And it was just one stretch, and but it's that the thing that I wanted to I brought it up to begin with is although my shoulder was in pain, he ended up stretching my leg and other parts of my
mhm,
body to release that. And that's what we don't often realize is we might be angry about something or have emotional blockage about something, but it might not be directly related to what we think it is. It could be something
mhm.
from our past that's triggered. It could be something that's
Sure.
seemingly
Mammalian
unrelated.
Mammalian brain triggering once again,
Right.
because mammalian brain stores all your emotions and everything that's ever happened to you from whenever, so, when you stimulate that, then you have that same emotion. So if you buried something deep and if you don't handle the emotional component to that, it's there. And if you've got to take a look at what that is and be able to release that so it doesn't control your life or kill you at some other point in time because it keeps on, it's a toxic, collector. It's like, where's more toxin? Bring it my way, and that type of thing. And in the mammalian brain, when those things trigger off, you have to be able to have your consciousness level so that you can mentally cancel it, push it away, and then be able to take your conscious brain. And that's where your affirmations come in either early in the morning, at night. I am healthy, I'm vital, I am active, I'm successful. I see my neck 100% better and whole, you
Yeah.
know, and and so and being able to follow that like specific train down with that. So it's a really interesting, like, the pieces of the puzzle when they start to fall in for somebody, there's a lot of excitement with that. But that mammalian brain, and and the lizard brain, what I call the lizard brain or primitive brain, they work a lot of times together to like sabotage you, and cut you off at the knees, thinking, no, 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 you're not going to win this time. Off my shoulder you go. And then you can do better things. You can have more control and command of your thoughts.
Well, my specialty is anxiety, and my goal with my patients and my online students and whoever I work with is to empower them to take control of their thoughts because it all starts there. Our thoughts end up creating our reactions, and we catastrophize, we blow up a small, minor situation, and then we react accordingly. And so we do like what you're saying as well is once we have command of our thoughts, once we have an understanding of what's going on, and once we do the work of practicing the affirmations and being
Mhm.
more aware and mindful, we're able to be more in control of our lives. Is that what you're trying to say? Or
Yes, that's really quite true. The other component that you didn't mention there is about the nutritional component because diet is definitively related to and all your immune system basically is in your gut, but diet is a precursor to your emotions. So
yep.
if you're upset, you're not going to digest your food, and
Mhm.
if and also eating certain foods can set off depression and anxiety too. So being mindful about what those components are and just don't buy them.
But yeah, we
Y-
vote with our dollars. And I'm
Yeah.
a very big supporter of the diet and nutrition and the gut brain access. process. And so I teach my patients about eating healthier. And a lot of them end up improving so quickly when they make that just a dietary adjustment,
Mhm. Oh,
or
yeah.
even the sleep adjustment without even dealing with the emotional piece
Mhm. A lot of
initially.
times you fix one, you fix the other. You know, I had another client one time, when I first met her, she was working in a chiropractic office and that I was covering for, and she had this red splotch on her leg that was probably about 8 inches long, and a couple inches wide. And I said, "Where'd you get that from?" And I said, "You couldn't buy it at Neiman Marcus, Season or Macy's, or any of those places like that." And she said, "No, it started out really small when I was a kid." She goes, "It just has gotten, bigger and bigger." And I said, "Well, it's interesting because it's all along like the stomach meridian and at like, right by the shin bone. And there's a lot of stomach points and gallbladder points and liver points around there and the spleen and all that stuff like that." And I said, "It'd be interesting to see where that, where that leads to." So we started working together because she wanted to just get in better health, and I needed some help doing something, and she had the expertise doing it. So she did that piece for me, and when we were looking at one day we were talking, and her brother came to visit the family, and the whole family emotional dynamics got up. She was anxious, she was frustrated, she was feeling insecure. Her father was paying more attention to her brother. I mean, this is like goes back to from when they're childhood. And these people were close to 40 and 50 years old with families, with kids of their own. So and I was pressing her about something, and she got real quiet. And I said, "So who do I remind you of right now, your mother or your father?" And she goes, "You think this is funny, Dr. Pat?" I said, "No, I'm a serious question. Who do I remind you of right now, your mother or your father?" And she said, "You remind me of my father."
Mm.
And I said, and I go, "How's that make you feel? I don't care if you like me." And I said, "Or love me right now, but I want you to love yourself. So tell me about your father." And then we worked through some stuff with her father and that. And about a month later, she said she took a picture of her leg and she sent it to me. And the spot that was about 8 inches long was now about 6 inches long. It started to recede. And she goes, "Do you think they're related?" I said, "I don't know." And I said, "But I do know you're a lot healthier in your mind, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and socially."
That's amazing. I know a lot of people are struggling with alcohol, and
Mhm.
on the one hand, there's so much push in the media about how alcohol is a social drug and it makes us happy and we can, celebrate with it. But on the other hand, if you drink a little too much, then you're ostracized by society. So, how do you explain not drinking to the people that you work with? Because obviously, I mean, a lot of people, including Dr. Amen, have said no amount of alcohol is healthy. So how do you explain that to people that have an issue with alcohol?
Alcohol is sugar, and sugar creates inflammation. And if you're not metabolizing sugar correctly, then you're creating more inflammation. And if you want to have more inflammation, then you're going to be sick.
Mhm.
And, and so I go, so the question is, do you want to be healthy? Are you willing to do what it takes to be healthy? If that answer is yes, then you have to stop drinking alcohol. Does it mean you have to stop drinking it forever? For some people, for sure, but other people, it's just like, readjust the clock in the body so the body's working properly now. And it's just because I grew up very French, and in France, you don't drink wine to drink wine. You might have it if you're at a cafe or something like that, but you have a glass of it. You don't have a bottle of it or two glasses of it. So, but you do have it to complement the food that you're eating because, wine is considered a carbohydrate and it's also, um, and all carbohydrates are carbohydrates, but it also can complement your food and help you digest your food better if it's paired properly. But a lot of people just don't know how to do that, so it's much easier just to avoid it. And then teach them about food combining, and like what foods go better with, this food goes better with that food. It helps you digest it and you get more benefit out of that. And it also helps heal your gut because when your gut's healthy, then you can absorb the nutrients where you're supposed to absorb them, not like, 2 miles down your intestinal tract,
Mm.
and that type of thing. Because protein is absorbed later on in the large intestine. It's broken down. It takes a lot to break down protein, so it's absorbed later on. And then a lot of times this is the reason why you would never want to drink milk, other than there's a lot of mucus in it. And so the other part about milk is that the calcium is fortified with calcium, and calcium and protein relatively bind together. So when that happens, that they're not the calcium should have been absorbed way back up in the intestinal tract, and the protein's being absorbed later on. So you're really not getting all the calcium that you should be getting for your body to be optimized.
Interesting.
Just
Wow.
one of those weird things I learned from my first nutrition teacher when we were talking about butter, like never buy margarine. I was, somebody mentioned something to me about margarine the other day, and I went, "Do they still sell it?" She
Do
goes,
they?
"Oh yeah."
Oh,
They still make it, they still sell it. I go, if any of your listeners out there, do not ever put that food in your mouth. It's the raw, it's not natural, number one. And number two, how they make it actually reconfigures the double bonds, which makes it one's cis and one's trans, and then how it relates is it's just twisted. And so when that happens, it has the tendency to make it more carcinogenic. So it's just like margarine's really bad for you. So don't buy it.
well, the same with canola oil and a lot of the seed oils that we're not supposed to eat, but it's in
Mm.
everything. And unless you're reading labels, you're not going to notice that.
Yeah, reading labels is important. And it's like, even when they say canola is organic, when the first time someone said to me, like, "Oh, yeah, but this canola is organic." And I bursted out laughing. I said, "Well," I said, "you just been had by the FDA." You know, and
Makes no
or
difference.
US, I mean, a USDA. I mean, the funniest like sign I ever saw when I lived in Washington, D.C., and when I was coming back, it said like the USDA farmers market. And I said, "Well, that's a joke." It's the last farmer's market I'd ever go to. It says, I don't care what they gave it to you for free, that kind of thing.
Yeah, our food is being hijacked, our
Mhm.
air is toxic, our environment, we put a lot of toxins in our on our body. And
Gotta read
so
labels. You
yeah.
ha you have to read labels, and you have to be willing to, like, do what it takes to, like, not do those things. And that I just like but you got it's like with everything, you have to be consistent. You can eat the foods from outside in and then heal from inside out, but, it's all happens between these 2 guys up here too.
Well,
Those
there
right.
are a lot of clean products now, which is really
Mhm.
good. And there are a lot of websites where we can actually go and check to see if a product is clean or how toxic a product
Yeah.
is. So there's a lot of them out there. And so it does all seem overwhelming, but if we make this a lifestyle habit, if we're constantly checking,
Mhm.
reading labels and making sure to put stuff back that are too toxic for us, we are able to make a difference. We're able
Mhm.
to allow our body to heal itself. And that's what I want to empower people with, that we can heal our bodies if we give our bodies a chance to do the work instead of flooding it with toxins from like on our skincare and our gut, on our and what we breathe in. So
Mhm. For sure. For sure. There's the other app that's really good for that. It's a French app, but it works all around the world. It's called Yuka. It's Yuka.
okay.
And that, looks at like, foods, and it gives you good information about that. It's a really friendly app, and that you can use like anywhere. And and it's very informative. But I think Dirty doesn't, it helps. It's more helpful when people submit an item that they're looking for, and they're looking for what the ingredients that are on there. So my rule to help everyone out on your listenership is that read the label, and if you don't understand the word, create a document in Excel and put that word in there. And then who cares if you can't pronounce it? Because some of them are so, they're tongue twisters, even when you know what the word is. And look up what the side effects are.
Mm.
And then you have to ask yourself, why are they putting that in there? Because if they can use rice fiber, to use as a filler in a pill, why are they putting stearate in it? Or cellulose, which is primarily most cellulose that they have in your Parmesan cheese, and also in a lot of, like fillers, comes from sawdust.
Or
So
hair.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty scary when you
No.
think about some of that. When you
Well,
start reading
it's
labels and
cheaper.
reading it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
the manufacturers use cheap products to sell us their to make the products, and then to save money on making these products. They can actually make money when they sell it, and we're the ones consuming, and then we're consuming blindly and we need to educate ourselves and just read the labels and like you said, if we don't understand something, start building a resource so that you can start recognizing those same things.
Right, especially like in skincare. You know, the piece of cheese like pecorino costs you $8 or something like that, and a bottle of, like Parmesan cheese or Parmesan Reggiano, costs you like $1.23 or 2.50, probably $3 now. And that, but the thing is that you don't use that the right, the whole thing anyway. So if you're grating it fresh on your food, you're probably going to use that one piece the whole time, unless you have a family of 8. Use that one piece for quite a while. And if it starts to get moldy, because it's not a processed cheese, you just cut the part off that's moldy and you can still eat it.
Yeah.
Unless it makes you, like, when you put it in your mouth, you go like, oh my God, this is disgusting, you know. But, a lot of times people are eating mold in their food all the time, especially like with Parmesan cheese that's been sitting in your refrigerator forever. And it's like you can't always see mold. Mold, some of it's invisible.
Yeah.
So anyway, not to scare anybody, but I have this feeling that everyone's getting up and running to their kitchen right now and opening their refrigerator door going, gone. I'm going to get rid of that.
Well, I keep my cheese in the freezer and it's very easy to use it right after. It's like
Hmm.
I can keep it in there a lot longer, and then when it's ready to be used, it's really easy to thaw it out and use it.
Hmm. Especially for that kind of hard cheese. Hard cheese is really
Mhm.
good for that. Or else you can grate it frozen.
Right.
And that makes it, that even makes it all the more palatable.
Well, as somebody that's French, you do recognize that when you go to France, the food there is different than
Oh
here.
yeah.
Even the fast food is different from here. And even the skincare products, there are things that are banned in Europe that are not banned in the US.
Oh,
And
for sure. The list is huge. I mean, if you go buy Heinz ketchup, even in the UK, it doesn't have any toxic chemicals in it.
yeah.
And if you look at, this government here, it's like, I swear to God, they're out to kill all of us. There is that, if you look at it, you're going, why is that? Why is it that they make it, wouldn't it be more cost effective to make it the same? It's just like,
Mhm.
or is there so much extra stuff in it that you're really saving, like 25 cents on a bottle? Because if you're selling, thousands of them, so, my go-to ketchup is at Trader Joe's. and, so is my Dijon mustard.
Well, food companies, pharmaceutical companies, makeup and the makeup industry, all of them get away with what we buy. If
Hmm.
we're willing to fork over our money, because we can vote with our dollars, if we're willing to fork over our money and not really care about what's in our
Hmm.
products,
Right.
then they can get to continue to do what they're doing. But if we say no, we want more transparency, we want less chemicals, then they will be forced to hear if enough of us speak out. But enough of us are not speaking out here, where in Europe they have higher standards for their food and their skincare and whatever else. So that's what makes the difference.
Like when you say about not speaking up, I used to live in DC, and my biggest takeaway from living there then is how complacent people were.
Mm.
I mean, I'm thinking when I grew up, we had, like Kent State University, and people were rallying against the Vietnam War, and people, came out in droves, and they were driving that message by numbers of people. But people don't do that. They're scared to speak out. And they're scared, and they have a fear that if they say something that, no one's gonna like them, or else they're gonna be, pointed to. That person said that, and that type of thing.
Some people will say that this is the age of anxiety and that there's a lot in our environment and in the news and our surroundings with social media, with comparing ourselves to other people, that it's making us anxious, making us more on edge. And so it is, I think, way more crucial now than ever to be more mindful about what we're eating, the amount of sleep we're getting, and making mental
Mhm.
health a priority so that we can function. Otherwise, we're all going to just completely fall apart and not be able to take care of ourselves or take care of our families. And so this is why I created this podcast, and just my book and my courses. Everything is to empower people to prioritize their mental health, because we're going to need to have our wits about us moving forward in life, because there's so much that's coming at us. And if we're not able to calm ourselves, we're not going to be thinking rationally. We're not
Mhm.
going to be able to problem solve in a way that's cognitively better for us. We're not using our brain in a healthy way.
It's a really uphill struggle for, when you get into that catch-22, for that, so that, not having, and teaching the tools that you help people with, it's just like, how do I step back? If I get bad news and I'm reacting to it and I'm getting anxious about it, what is it that I do?
Mhm.
And it's just like I meditate. And, I lay down, I close my eyes, and I take 21 minutes and I do nothing, except focus on being healthy, and being in a different state of mind that's more functional, so that no matter what happens around me, I carry peace of mind with me 24/7.
Well, yeah, because you're
Right?
solid on the inside. You've been
Right.
working on being solid on the
Yep.
inside, but a lot of people don't have the luxury to lay down for 21 minutes because their kids
Mhm.
are screaming, their husband's demanding something, their wife is saying something, their boss is
It's
calling,
true.
and it's so chaotic. But they've said that a lot of the domestic violence phone calls that the police receive are the result of too much noise in the house. So
Mhm.
imagine having a bunch of kids running around, your wife is screaming, your husband is screaming, whatever, and the TV is blaring. And all somebody has to
It's a
do is
bad combination.
right. But once you turn that TV off,
Mhm.
it changes the dynamic in that family.
Like when I said the 21 minutes is a really specific exercise I do, but I usually do that before I go to bed, and so that I can, get all those, decompress, so I can get in the state that I can sleep well and sleep long. And then and then after you fall asleep, being able to get into the deep sleep, which is the part that's restorative. It gives you the vim and vigor to get up and hit the ground running like the next day, and being able to get into that. And a lot of times, foods totally interrupt how you sleep,
Or
or
eating
what
too
you eat.
late and eating
Yeah.
things that you're not supposed to, or drinking caffeine. All of that can impact your sleep. It's true. But
Yep.
I didn't want to do the whole black and white thinking for people that are like, well, I don't have 21 minutes to
Mhm.
meditate, but it doesn't take 21 minutes. Even if
You
people
can take
are
5. You can
a
just
minute.
take 5. Go outside and sit on your back deck, and close your eyes.
Mhm.
One thing I tell people when they work, if they can have the capacity to do it and figure out how to set it up, is that when they get home after working, lay down for 30 minutes uninterrupted, and just lay there flat, get
But
neck
again,
support.
that's assuming there's no kids demanding your attention, there's
Right.
no spouse
For
demanding your
oh, for
attention.
for sure, and it's like,
Mhm.
and if you have older kids that would understand, like, like this is a no kids zone for 30 minutes, type of thing after you say hello to them. My girlfriend always said she was an executive at an insurance company, and she used to tell me when I did market research, I thought this was funny because I would ask men and women the same questions, right? And men would tell me they never, ever, ever thought about at 2:45 or 3 o'clock what they had to feed their kids at night for dinner. She said, but women, more than women, she goes, yeah, I wouldn't say it's 2:45. Usually for me, it's like 3:15, 3:30. But I'm looking at the clock going, I've got to get out of work. I've got to
Yeah.
go get food for dinner, and I've got to decompress from having a crappy day or a good day. And I have to turn into mom. And when I turn into mom, I have to be able to have that more of that, being that encompassing mom, like, it's like, tell me about your day, and those things that work for them. And so but she goes every day at 2:45,
Mhm.
like time work, and her body would just kind of go into like, I got to start thinking about becoming mom,
Yeah.
and so when she got home, her 30 minutes that she did was at the end of the day, and she jumped in a hot bath after everyone went to sleep. And she did that, locked the door. She's and she just zoned right out, and that helped her sleep, and that's, helped her for a lot of different, it made her feel relaxed, and able to really handle things a lot better. But men have never told me that they think about they go, well, I'll buy it on the way home if I had to.
Right, or McDonald's, yeah. But somebody that actually makes the time to take a bath at the end of the night, and that's prioritizing herself, which is really important. But what
Mhm.
I was saying is you don't even need 5 minutes. You can just set your phone alarm or your iWatch or whatever, just at the top of every hour, and just take a breath, 1 minute, take a deep
Mhm.
breath. And that's going to make you much more productive and make you more mindful. But a lot of times we're just go, go, go. We're not even stopping until we lay down. And then we wonder why we're not sleeping, because at that point we've hijacked or jacked up our cortisol levels and our body's way too wired to sleep.
Mhm.
So it's all combined and it's all connected.
Well,
Now,
you gotta set the stage,
right.
right?
You have
Gotta
something called the zone of genius. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it improves productivity?
um, I have, I read a book, by a guy, and he talked about Einstein's time. And so Einstein's time for some people is their zone of genius. For some people is being in their groove, and for some people it's in their vortex. Whatever word you want to use doesn't matter. But being in your zone of genius is that when you're in that, you know that you know that you know that you know. And the universe plots for your positivity and for your success, so that when you do that, and you can have control of your thoughts and you have command over negative thoughts. The negative thoughts you got to push away, like, and cancel them. But when you're in your zone of genius, you get things done. You meet the right people, and like I always call it, like, you could also say that you're a grace magnet. Good things come to you, much more easy. And so in that zone of genius, I always use it on a time scale. And as when I worked, I never thought about what time it was. I just focused on what I had in front of me, and I put my intention into that. And it was fun being in that zone, because then you were efficient. You didn't have to sweat the small stuff, and you just forged ahead, and it all seemed to work together. Just because when you are, things just happen for you, and they're usually positive. Or if it's something that doesn't exactly work out, then you just ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn from this? And think about it, maybe journal it, and then move on. There's nothing you can do about your past. There's something you can do about your present and moving on in the forward in your future.
So you're in a flow, you're in a zone of just,
Hmm. You're just moving,
you're more efficient, you're more productive, which is really great. Well,
and your
thank you
thoughts
for,
are clear, right? Your thoughts are very clear.
and it does make us more productive because we're not allowed, it's almost like putting blinders on our eyes and we're focused on what the task in front of us, and that's all we're focused on, and we put all our energy in there, giving it 110%, and then yeah, we are more productive, we are
Mhm.
not distracted, and we can get the task done. So thank you for explaining that. Where can people find you and how can people connect with you?
Well, people can connect with me off my website. My website is called healthteamnetwork.com. There's a lot of different venues on that website, and ways to get on my calendar, and information that you can do. There's some assessments, some science-based assessments on the front opening page. You can ask me a question on the front opening page. There's a microphone for you to use, and that you can click on and do that. People can get a hold of me on Facebook. On my page is Ask Dr. Pat, ASK Dr. Pat, and I usually go off of my personal page on Facebook more. And my LinkedIn account and Instagram are Instagram.com, LinkedIn.com, and LinkedIn has a special /IN/ Dr. Pat Boulogne, just as you see it here, but all one word. And that's like a really super way to reach out and connect with me and ask me questions. You can direct message me there on any of these platforms, and I'll get back with you as soon as I can.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for joining me today. And
But and anyway, it's been a super, super big pleasure being here, and like batting around ideas and brainstorming with you. And it's so nice to meet you and be able to have that brain share with you. I think it's great.
thank you. Thank you for making the time.